Hey friends, Victor Costa, how you doing? Hope this video is coming out okay. Wanted to pick up and dovetail on the last live video that I did, and I talked a little bit about calories and how many calories you need in order to not only work out as a hobby, but also to be you, to run you. And I was talking about how you need about 2,000 calories as a baseline. Then if you're going to lift weights or have an activity like that as your hobby, that you're going to need an extra 400 to 500 calories to fortify that workout so that you don't leave those calories on the gym floor, and you can use those as the brick and mortar to build your body. And then I also mentioned that I would also talk later on in another video about the macro component. So we've got the calorie component that we've kind of already covered, but let's talk a little bit about the macro component. Now, when I was younger, I would only eat very low-fat foods. I would say that maybe my breakdown was something like 45, 45, 10, meaning 45% carbs, 45% protein, 10% fat, and maybe even lower. I used to see how low I could go in terms of fat, and that worked for me for a while, but then I really didn't have a lot of energy. My skin didn't have a good texture to it. I didn't have a lot of life in my eyes. And for years, my mother had been saying, I think you need more fat. See, mothers always know best. So then I started to tinker around with the idea of more good fats. And that would entail olive oil, avocado, nuts. I prefer almonds and walnuts. So I would add those things in, and suddenly things started to change for me. So the macro that I recommend for a lot of people is like a 40, 40, 20. If you want to stay low on the fats, go with 40% carbs. Try to keep those mostly as complex carbohydrates, root-based carbohydrates. I like sweet potatoes and quinoa to satisfy the component of my carbohydrates. 40% protein and 20% fat. That is also kind of a good baseline. You need to know where you're starting in order to kind of change things as you go. You need some rules, right? So I would say, as we talked about in the previous video, the calories, you would need at least 2,000 to be you, an extra 400 to 500 to support the bodybuilding workout, habit, routine, religion, whatever you want to call it. And then a breakdown, probably something in the neighborhood of 40, 40, 20. 40% carbs, 40% protein, 20% fat. I've been coaching a lot of guys, and they have been telling me that some of them have switched off from using carbohydrates as their preferred fuel source to fats as their preferred fuel source. In fact, they eat very little carbohydrates. And although this is sort of, it can be considered a healthy diet, a lot of people are proponents of diets like that. In terms of athletic performance and in terms of texture of the body and how the body looks, and also in terms of strength, I found that using carbohydrates as the preferred fuel source is really the best way to go. And you know, when you're trying to switch your body or game your body from one thing to the next, in other words, I'm going to go from carbohydrates as my fuel source to fat as my fuel source, the body is kind of disrupted. I like to think of myself as like a hybrid, right? Where I can toggle between the two sources of energy, right? I'm not necessarily all the way carbohydrates and I'm not all the way fat. My body is toggling in between the two, accepting both of them, but I do have a baseline of a 40, 40, 20. So that's something else I wanted to talk to you about. People have asked me also, Vic, how do you keep strict form and move up in weight at the same time? Well, there has to be a little give up, right? There's got to be a little bit of a sacrifice. So you might have to sacrifice a little bit of form to start dealing and handling those heavier poundages. So you have to move up slowly, right? We don't want to throw the form completely out the window, but we do want to test ourselves and move up in weight a little bit. So what's wrong with going up in 5-pound increments at a time and being patient and really crafting your body? Now, the last and final thing is we are going to give away a shirt today. It's Vic's Gym New York City shirt. Vic's Gym is not an actual place. Vic's Gym is in here. It's right there. And so we're going to do the typical raffle rules. where you comment. When you comment, I kind of like shut my eyes, scroll through the phone, and just go like that, and that's who wins. Regardless of where you are in this world, I will pay for shipping international, okay? This is my actual shirt. It's an extra large. It's been washed a couple of times, so it's nice and broken in. And I wish you guys a great holiday weekend if you're celebrating the holiday weekend, and all the best for peace, love, and muscles. Take care. Bye. Questions, comments, and don't forget, raffle stuff. Put your comments below. Bye. Peace.